Okay, I'd like to start by just welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see everyone. Sawadee Kap. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. Today is what we call our group learning program, where I come together with students to help them understand the path to enlightenment. This enlightened mental state that the Buddha taught is to get to a point where your mind is completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will no longer experience any discontent feelings. You will no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings in others are eliminated from the mind. This is accomplished through training of the mind. So we start each one of our classes with meditation to be able to help you guys learn how to train the mind. And then afterwards, I'm going to provide you a talk on some of the teachings of the Buddha. Because while you need meditation in order to get to enlightenment, you wouldn't be able to meditate your way to enlightenment. You need other things besides just meditation. So I'm going to guide you in a meditation session, helping you guys to learn about meditation, but then I'm going to share with you guys some of the teachings of the Buddha that are going to help you to be able to understand this path of training your mind. Today's topic is the moral conduct section of the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is the core central teaching of the Buddha, where this is what's going to guide you to enlightenment. So an individual who's interested in getting to enlightenment through the teachings of the Buddha, they would understand the Eightfold Path inside and out, backwards and forwards, left, right, up, down. They would study it very closely because that's actually what you're implementing into your day-to-day life in order to be able to train the mind to get to enlightenment. So welcome to all of you guys here. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. If you'd like to join for meditation, the way that I start this is with some chanting to ease into the meditation. You guys are welcome to join into the chanting if you like. I have chanting sheets over there on the cabinet. You're welcome to help yourself to a chanting sheet if you like. During the lifetime of the Buddha, he used chanting as a way to help his students. I'll let you guys get that first. Those of you guys online, if you guys would like to get a chanting sheet, you can get this from our website at buddhadailywisdom.com. Just click on free books and then scroll down towards the bottom and you'll be able to see the chanting sheet there. So during the lifetime of the Buddha, he used chanting as a way to help his students to commit the teachings to memory. Every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally. This is how they were able to commit them to their memory because everything he taught was oral. They didn't have books, audiobooks, videos, podcasts, things like this to be able to study, to remember the teachings. So they used chanting as a way to recite the teachings and commit them to their memory. So you can see from the origins of chanting, this isn't anything mystical or magical. It's not a rite, ritual, ceremony, worship, or prayer, or anything like that. If you've been presented those kinds of things associated with the teachings of the Buddha, those aren't the teachings of the Buddha. He never taught any rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, or prayer. There's nothing mystical or magical about his teachings. It's about training your mind. So these chants today, we use them in order to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. But during the lifetime of the Buddha, they used chanting as a learning tool, as a learning device. If you read the English translations of these chants, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of that, I don't think he even created these chants himself. They were probably created by his students, either during his life or after his death. Because the Buddha wouldn't have walked around and said, "Here, chant these chants to me out of respect for me." This would be ego if somebody did this. And by the time you got into enlightenment, you don't have that in your mind any longer. So I suspect these came from his students either during his life or after his death. Because if you learn from a teacher how to move from anger, sadness, frustration, and all these other discontent feelings to the peaceful and joyful mental state that is enlightenment, and this teacher didn't want anything from you or expect anything from you, you might actually have a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for that person too. So that's why I suspect that these chants actually came from his students either during his life or after his death. In terms of your body position for meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you would learn these different positions at different times as part of your journey to enlightenment. It's kind of like having a tool belt, and you use these different tools at different times. But when people are first getting started, they're typically learning in the seated position. So I'll give you guys some guidance on the seated position. And then if you end up taking any of our classes, courses, or retreats where I teach all these other positions, you can learn those as well. The seated position is kind of like a primary position that a lot of people learn in. But what I'm going to share with you are just suggestions or recommendations. There's not just one way to actually sit during meditation. Whereas if there was just one way to actually sit, this would be permanence. And we don't live in that world. We don't live in a permanent world. So you can sit however you like. You can sit on the floor. You can sit in a chair. If you're at home, you might be on a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair. You can sit however you like. If you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This is going to help soften your seat. And if you're going to bring your legs together in the cross-leg position, you might just decide to do that lightly. Whereas if they're real tight, it can impede the circulation and cause pain in the lower body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets their hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, allowing the circulation to flow. So you might consider that as well. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use it. But it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. That would be permanence. And we live in an impermanent world where different people are going to find different things to be comfortable. So there's other options here. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you can find whatever's comfortable for you. The same thing's true for anybody who's in a chair or a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair. You can also sit however you like. Some people like to sit with their feet flat on the floor or lightly crossed at the ankle. But you can see me sitting here in a chair with my legs crossed. So this is an option for you as well. And then you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. In terms of your upper body, it's helpful if this is erect. With the sternum up and the shoulders back, it'll help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. What meditation is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you'd like the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. So having your sternum up and your shoulders back will help keep your mind attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched like this, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you are real rigid with the upper body, your mind could be overactive or uptight. So this keeping your sternum up and your shoulders back, not only will it keep your mind attentive and alert during the meditation, but it'll make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to do the chanting on the way into the meditation. Then there's going to be some guidance where I'm going to be essentially teaching you or instructing you how to meditate while we're actually meditating. There's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating. Everyone here at the temple and anybody who's joining online. Now, during this time of quietness, I'm sure you're going to hear occasional sounds. You might hear a car going by, a dog barking, bird chirping. Someone here might cough or sneeze. This is all normal. If you're in meditation with a craving for permanent silence, when you hear a sound during meditation, you will cause your mind to be annoyed or frustrated. This is the reason why you can eliminate all those discontent feelings, because it's the mind itself that's causing these feelings. It's not the outside world. Oftentimes people think it's the outside world that's causing these feelings, but it's actually your own mind and it's craving permanence while you live in an impermanent world. So if you're in meditation, understanding impermanence, that things are going to arise, they're going to change, and they're going to fade away, and this is a normal part of the world, then when you hear that sound, you can just rest at ease and you can be peaceful, understanding that things in the world are constantly changing. So during this time of quietness, I'm sure you're going to hear occasional sounds. Then we're going to come out of the meditation with some more chanting, and that's where I'll start today's class. So if you'd like to join in, you're more than welcome to. I'm going to do the chanting to ease us in, and then I'll come back in with the guidance. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakewa Hotang Mahakewanang Apivate Ami Savakato Mahakewata Tammo Namang namasami Supatipano Mahakawato Savaka Sangho Sanghang namami Namo rasa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังปุโตภาควาติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath, not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหะเกวาพุทธังมหาเกวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเกวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเกวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหะเกวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภาควาติ Okay, if you'd like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys. Nice to see everyone here this morning. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. Today is our group learning program. We're going to be sharing with you guys some teachings of the Buddha to be able to help you understand what he taught that is going to help guide you to this enlightened mental state. What enlightenment is where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. The mind no longer experiences any discontent feelings. The mind would have eliminated all of its anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of this is eliminated from the mind through training of the mind. The Buddha discovered these individual pollutions that are in the mind. And when you understand what these pollutions are and you apply the tools and the techniques to uproot those out of the mind, the qualities of enlightenment start shining through more and more. Not only will you experience those things that I just mentioned, but you'll notice that the mind's focus, there's concentration, clarity, and deep memory. Because when you have these pollutions in the mind, you don't have those qualities. The mind lacks the ability to experience focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory. So if you're experiencing those things now, that is not permanent. You can actually change that through training of the mind. By the time you get to enlightenment, you'll notice that all your personal and professional relationships are really blossoming. They're at ease. They're all harmonious. Because in the unenlightened state, you have a certain amount of bitterness and harshness and hostility in your mind. And that comes out through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. And when you're putting that out, it's all coming back to you. You might think that that bitterness and harshness is being caused by the other person, but it's actually being caused by your own mind. That's why you can eliminate this. If this was all being caused by other people, you would never be able to eliminate it. So when you get to the point where your mind's actually enlightened, you'll be able to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful to everybody and anybody in all situations. Again, right now, that's probably quite challenging for you, but you can train your mind to get to the point where that's not the case. By the time you get to enlightenment, it's impossible to even experience a bad mood any longer. You can't even physically be in a bad mood. It's just physically impossible. And again, this is coming through training of the mind. There's no belief in the teachings of the Buddha. You're not believing a bunch of things and then hoping something good happens when you die. That's not what his teachings are. It's about learning, growing, and developing in this life so that you can experience an ideal life in this life. So the teachings of the Buddha are independently verifiable. You're not just believing his teachings, because with belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it because someone either convinced you to believe it or you convinced yourself to believe it. In order to be able to get to this enlightened mental state, you need to cultivate wisdom. In order to do that, you need to learn, examine, and investigate the teachings. That's what we're going to be doing today. I'm going to be sharing the teachings with you. Then you need to reflect on these teachings to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. Then you need to practice the teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life so that you can actually see the teachings working as it's improving the condition of your mind and the condition of your life. I'm going to be sharing many things with you this morning, and I'm going to be pausing a few times, opening up for questions to see what questions you guys might have. And as you guys have questions, whether you're here at the temple or you're online, you can ask any and all questions. Here at the temple, if you could use the microphones in the white bowl in the middle of the room, that would be really helpful. All you need to do is come get a microphone, press the gray button, and then you can hold it up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't actually be able to hear you online. And you can keep these microphones with you at your seat because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can just share the microphone with them. And if you're not using it, if you could turn it off, that'll be helpful so that we don't get feedback through the speakers. And then anybody who's online, if you would like to ask questions, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section, or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and ask any and all questions that you like. So I essentially just restarted this program at the beginning of this year. And we meet Sundays and Wednesdays at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. here at the temple. And then I live stream it. So no matter where you are in the world, you can attend class live. Or if you missed the live class, you can actually watch the recording either on Facebook, on YouTube, or on our podcast. Today's class is talking about the moral conduct section of the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is a core central teaching of the Buddha that's actually going to guide you to this enlightened mental state. Here at the beginning of the group learning program, I'm giving students an overview of what the path to enlightenment is and going really in depth with it. And then in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be starting from chapter 1 of our book, which is titled Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. I'm going to be going chapter by chapter in this book over a 7-month period. And you can actually get this book for free by downloading it from our website. You can take it and go print it if you like. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can order it on Amazon if your country has access to Amazon. So last week, I taught this wisdom section. Today, I'm going to be teaching the moral conduct section. And this Eightfold Path is a core central teaching of the Buddha where everything else plugs into it. So in order to get to enlightenment, you would need to know this inside and out, backwards and forwards, like the back of your hand. So that's why I'm really taking my time here at the beginning of the program to really walk students through this. And next week, I'm going to be teaching this mental discipline section. So as you're learning this Eightfold Path, it's important to keep in mind what this is like if you had a speaker system and you were trying to get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers, you might have 8 individual dials that you're tweaking these 8 individual dials. And now you're getting a better and better quality sound out of the speakers. Or your mind functions the same way, that these are 8 individual dials that you can tweak in your life to get a better and better performing mind. And it starts with this wisdom section. And I know many of you guys were here last week, either online or here at the temple, but many of you guys weren't here last week. So I'm just going to do a brief little recap of what I taught last week before we move into this moral conduct section. So I'm just going to go back here in the slides of what I taught last week, which is right view and right intention, because this forms the foundation of understanding what it is that I'm going to teach you today, which is the moral conduct section. This wisdom section helps you to understand right view and right intention. What right view is where you understand the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths is the very first teaching of the Buddha, where in 4 simple statements, he explains to you the problem in the mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. And this is a teaching that you can independently verify. And it's built upon understanding the three universal truths. There's these three universal truths and the Four Noble Truths. And we call them truths because the Buddha knew that they were true. I know that they're true, and other people know that they're true. But in order for you to benefit, you need to know that they're true. And that's why you don't believe any of these teachings. The Buddha's not explaining to you the way the world should be. He's explaining to you the way the world is. Because the mind's lack of wisdom in the unenlightened state, it will tend to struggle and have difficulties in your day-to-day life. That's what the stress and anxiety is. That's what the guilt, the shame, and the fear and all these other feelings are, is it's the mind struggling to live in a world that it doesn't understand. So what the Buddha is explaining in this first universal truth is that everything around you is constantly changing. This is called impermanence. And this is a building block to help you understand the Four Noble Truths, that things arise, they change, and they fade away. But you can't believe that because you need to independently verify this to be able to get to wisdom. And that's where you take things like your physical body and you ask yourself, is it permanent or is it impermanent? If the body's permanent, that means it's been exactly the same your whole life. If it's impermanent, that means it's been constantly changing. Then you take things like your relationships. Are they permanent or impermanent? If they're permanent, that means you've had exactly the same people in your life your entire life. If your relationships are impermanent, you've had people coming and going in and out of your life. Then you can look at things like the weather. You can see that that's impermanent. Or maybe your bank account. You can see your bank account is impermanent. It's constantly changing, going up and down, or up, or down, down, down. Everything around you is constantly changing. This is a fundamental building block to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. Then the Buddha explains to you the universal truth of discontentedness, helping you to understand the unenlightened mind, that it experiences three feelings: pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. These are what's called conditioned feelings, that based on some condition, your mind's going to experience a feeling. So those pleasant feelings are things like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. The painful feelings are things like sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. These are very painful for the mind to experience. Then there's neither painful nor pleasant. And I put boredom and loneliness here, but some people say that's quite painful for them. So you could put that in the painful category. Or maybe like shyness. It's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. The mind's kind of uncomfortable or dissatisfied in that situation. So the Buddha is explaining to you what the unenlightened mind experiences, that it's these conditioned feelings, that based on some condition, the mind is then going to experience a feeling. So for example, if you wake up in the morning and you see it's sunny outside and you get happy and excited about that, that is a conditioned feeling. Based on seeing the sun, that condition, now the mind is going to experience that feeling. But the problem with conditioned feelings is that they're temporary. They fade away because as soon as it rains, you'll be angry and frustrated. Or if you get really happy and excited when your bank account balance is up here, that's a conditioned feeling. Based on the condition that your balance is this, now you'll be happy and excited. But again, the problem with that is when it changes and it goes down here, you'll be sad and frustrated, because that conditioned feeling is based on an impermanent object. So that means if you form your feelings based on something that is impermanent, that means your happiness is not permanent. This is the reason why you haven't been able to get to permanent happiness, because the unenlightened mind is forming its inner feelings based on some condition, something that is temporary or impermanent. And that's why you're experiencing the impermanence of the happy feelings, that the feeling of happiness is not permanent because it's conditional. And the mind is experiencing this discontentedness where the mind is shaken up. It's unsteady, it's uncalm. And when you're experiencing this, it makes it very difficult for you to be able to make decisions and experience wholesome results. Then there's the universal truth of non-self. I talked about this in depth and gave a lot of examples here. I'll just give a little bit of an introduction to it. This is where your mind clings to this body, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. If you were ever embarrassed when you're in a social situation where you spilled something on your clothing and now you weren't being perceived the way you want to be perceived, this is because the mind is clinging to a self, to a personal existence view, thinking that this body is you or this mind is you. And now you can only be happy when you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived. Or if you've ever looked in a mirror and you saw a pimple or a wrinkle or a mole or a gray hair, or you started losing your hair and you were shaken up by this is because your mind is clinging to this body, wanting it to be permanent, when in reality it is impermanent. It's constantly changing. So there's details here on this universal truth of non-self that you need to understand. But right now, what I'm going to do is just give you this introduction to these teachings. So I'm not going to go into the universal truth of non-self in a lot of depth, but just understand that this is the mind clinging to the physical body, the self-image, or the mind, the self-identity, thinking that this is who you are. And now you can only experience pleasantness when you're experiencing things that you're being perceived in the way that you want to be perceived by others. Then, as part of this overview, I helped students to be able to understand last week what is craving, desire, attachment. This is the mind longing, yearning, chasing after the objects of its affection, wanting and expecting things to be a certain way. It's almost like an unquenchable thirst. The mind thinks something external is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it and chases it. If you've ever been in the mall and you saw a brand new pair of shoes and you were like, oh, a brand new pair of shoes. Oh, I can't wait to get those on my feet. They're going to look so good. I can't wait until my friends see those. Oh, it's going to be so great to get those shoes. The shoes isn't the craving, desire, attachment. It's the way the mind's longing, yearning for the shoes. Or if you were like, oh, I want a boyfriend or girlfriend. That boyfriend or girlfriend is going to make my life so much better. I can't wait to get a boyfriend or girlfriend. I really want one of those. And now the mind might have chased that for a while. And when you first got it, you were happy. But afterwards, maybe you were angry or frustrated after a period of time. Or you're like, oh, I know what I need to do to feel better. I want to go to Thailand. Let me go to Thailand. That'll make everything better. Let me go there. And now the mind chases after that and gets so excited to go to Thailand. But then when it's time to go back home, it's like, oh, I don't want to go. They have mango and sticky rice here. They have massages and elephants and all this other stuff. Like, why do I have to go home? Right? So this is the mind craving. The mind can be happy when it gets what it wants, but it can't be happy when it's not getting what it wants. And that's what the Four Noble Truths explains to you. That the first noble truth is explaining the problem. The discontentedness is the problem, the conditioned feelings, that everyone that's in the unenlightened state is experiencing discontentedness, where their mind's shaken up. It's unsteady. It's all uncalm. That based on some condition, the mind can only experience a feeling based on that condition. So this discontentedness is the problem. The cause of that problem is craving, desire, attachment. The mind's longing, yearning, and chasing after the objects of its affection. It's craving permanence, and it can only be happy if it gets what it wants. And if it doesn't get what it wants, it gets painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. Oftentimes, people attribute these painful feelings to something external. You might think it's your mom and dad that are causing you to be angry or sad or frustrated. Or maybe your brothers or sisters, you think they're annoying you. Or your boss is irritating you. This isn't actually true. It's actually coming from within your own mind. That the mind is craving and longing, yearning. It's craving permanence while you live in an impermanent world. So let me give you a few examples because you need to be able to independently verify this. Think about when you were a child. You maybe wanted chocolate and ice cream. You might have went to your parents and said, Mommy and Daddy, can I have chocolate and ice cream? And they're like, sure, here you go. Here's your chocolate and ice cream. You're like, oh, thank you so much, Mommy and Daddy. You're so great. And you're so happy, right? And then the second day comes around. You're like, Mommy, Daddy, can I have chocolate and ice cream? Sure, here you go. Here's your chocolate and ice cream. Ah, thank you so much, Mommy and Daddy. You're so great. But then the third day comes around and you're like, Mommy, Daddy, can I have chocolate and ice cream? No. You're like, You're the worst mommy and daddy ever, right? This is the mind that it's not getting what it wants. It's not mom and dad that is causing this. This is the mind craving permanence. The mind thought, if I can get chocolate and ice cream every single day, this is a perfect world, right? As long as the mind was getting what it wanted, it was happy and excited about that. But when the mind wasn't getting what it wanted, it experienced anger, sadness, or frustration. And we will typically associate that with something external. You will think that it's someone in the outside world that's causing this. Or think back to maybe like a boyfriend or girlfriend you got together with. When you guys first got together, you were probably really happy and excited about that. But then over time, the relationship deteriorated. And then when you guys broke up, you might have been angry or sad, lonely or bored, or you might have been missing this person. This isn't your love. It's the mind craving permanence. That as long as the mind's getting what it wants, which is boyfriend or girlfriend in your life, the mind's happy to a certain degree. But then when you guys aren't together, the mind's not getting what it wants, which is craving this permanence. And now the mind experiences the anger, sadness, frustration, and others. Or say you had a brand new car. You were so happy with this brand new car, and you parked it at a store, and you went inside, and you came out, and you saw a scratch on your car. If you get frustrated in this situation, it's not the scratch that's causing it. And it's not the person who scratched your car. What it is the mind is craving permanence. It's wanting this car to look permanently beautiful. We're not talking about what's wise or unwise, because when we walk through a parking lot, of course, we aspire not to scratch anyone's car. But the fact is that this car is impermanent. It's going to change. And if your mind craves permanence, when you see a scratch, when your tires need to be changed, when the upholstery gets ripped or torn, you're going to be frustrated or irritated or annoyed or some other discontent feeling. And when those painful feelings are arising, the mind firmly believes that it's being caused by something external. And what you will typically do is you'll push people away out of your life. The mind becomes unskillful, where you might push away friends or family members. You might have done this before, where you've pushed this person away, thinking that that was going to solve the problem. But you can see it didn't solve the problem because you still get annoyed, you still get frustrated or irritated. If this person was the true cause of your anger and frustration, when you push them out of your life, you would be peaceful and joyful from that point forward. Or the second thing you'll do is you'll be bitter and harsh and hostile to people through your intentions, speech, and actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another being, trying to fear them into doing things your way. Or the third thing you might do is put your expectations on people. Try to convince them or pressure them to be able to do things your way. And people might be doing this to you too, where they're pushing you away, being bitter, harsh, and hostile to you, or putting their expectations on you and trying to control you. So as long as the mind doesn't understand this second noble truth, that it's craving, desire, attachment that's causing these feelings, you can't live harmoniously with all beings, because it's only a matter of time before people do things differently than you. The mind has this craving for permanence. If people do things this way, this is the right way. That's the way the mind thinks in the unenlightened state. My way is the right way. And if they do it this way, everything's great. But if they do it over here this way, I don't like that. And now I'm going to get angry and frustrated. That's what the unenlightened mind does. It's like, I like this person because they do things my way. But it's only a matter of time before you're with this person long enough that you find out that they do things differently than you in some situations. That's impermanence. Not everybody's going to do things the same way. But if you only can like people who do things your way, then that means you're going to dislike the people who don't do things your way. And that dislike that you have for others, you might think it's coming from other people, where it's actually coming from your own mind. The mind is craving permanence, wanting everybody to do it this way. And there's only one person in the world who does things your way. Do you know who this person is who does things your way all the time? Yourself, right? So if you can only love people who do things your way, you can only love yourself. And you might actually find that challenging to do sometimes too, right? So you need to get to the point where you understand the world is impermanent. People are going to do things differently, and that's okay. Not everyone's going to do things your way, but your ego is going to tell you that your way is the right way and everybody else's way is the wrong way. And now you're going to be stuck continuing to experience discontentedness over and over and over again because it keeps craving this permanence. And it's going to push people away, be bitter, harsh, and hostile, and put expectations on people and trying to control people to do things this way. That's what the mind's trying to do. Well, once you understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, and by the way, you need to independently verify this for yourself. You can't believe what I'm sharing with you. You need to look at your own life, maybe a recent situation where you've been angry or frustrated or irritated, and peer into that. Because during that time frame, you might have been trying to blame somebody else. That's what the unenlightened mind does. When you get angry, you're looking for someone else to blame. But look at that situation, whether it was this morning or yesterday or last week. Look at that situation with these fresh eyes. What was it that the mind was longing, yearning for? What was it craving and wanting and expecting? And if you would have gotten it, you would have been happy or excited. But because you didn't get what you wanted, the mind was angry or sad or frustrated or some other discontent feeling. So you need to be able to see it for yourself. And you can ask me questions if you have difficulty seeing this, because there's been plenty of students that needed help to be able to see it. Because once you see it and you can see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, this is the first step of you getting to the point where you no longer experience these feelings. You can actually have a breakthrough to being able to get to the point where you can experience peace and joy. But as long as you go around the world thinking that it's other people that are causing these feelings, you will never fix it. You need to be able to see that it's your own mind that's causing these. So if you need help to see it, let me know. You can share with me an example and I will help you to be able to see it. Because once you understand that it's craving, desire, attachment that is the cause of these feelings, the mind craving permanence, then the third noble truth is explaining to you that you can eliminate this discontentedness by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. You can verify this. The mind, when it's craving permanence, it'll be discontent. That person who you broke up with, when they were freshly broken up, you were maybe angry or sad or lonely or bored or missing this person. But at some point, a few weeks in, a few months in, you were like, you know what? If he wants to be with someone else, so be it. And you let go. And that's where your peace and your joy came back. Or you were like, you know what? If she wants to move to a different part of the world and she's not interested in living around here, that's fine. Let it be, so be it. And your mind let go. And that's where your peace and joy came back. So when you eliminate your craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the craving for permanence, you can actually get to a point where the mind's peaceful and joyful. But the mind doesn't know how to do this in the unenlightened state. And that's where the fourth noble truth comes in. The path to eliminating discontentedness is the Eightfold Path. It's the complete, perfect plan that's going to guide you in how to actually get to the point where your mind no longer experiences discontentedness. But it starts with right view. You need to have the right view of what's truly causing these feelings. Because if you're going to eliminate it, you need to understand what's causing it. And the right view is to understand it's your own mind. It's the craving, desire, attachment. Wrong view would be to blame other people for the feelings that you're experiencing. And that's typically what we do in the unenlightened state, is we firmly believe that it's other people that's causing these feelings. But when you can see the truth and you understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, now your mind can get freedom. You can get freedom from those strong feelings. So it's all built on this right view. And then after that, the Buddha teaches right intention. This is right thinking or right thought or right intention. There's three aspects to this: intention of renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. You need to cultivate this thinking or this intention in the mind where you have the intention of renunciation. What renunciation is where you're willing to let go of your false ideas, your false beliefs, false opinions, false views, and your unwholesomeness. Because right now, if you experience anger, sadness, frustration, and all these other feelings, there's certain false beliefs you have in your mind, certain false opinions, views that are in your mind. I know right now you might firmly believe that you understand this world, but your mind doesn't understand it yet. That's why you're experiencing the anger and the sadness and frustration. It's the lack of wisdom that the mind has. So as long as you hold on to your false beliefs, false opinions, and false views, your mind is closed and you're unwilling to bring in wisdom to be able to see true reality of what's going on in the world. You need to be able to see true reality. So you need to be willing to let go of your false ideas, false beliefs, false opinions, and false views. One of the very first things you need to be willing to let go of is that it's other people who are causing you to experience these feelings. That's one of the first things you need to eliminate. But the Buddhist teachings aren't designed where you're bringing in new beliefs in order to get rid of your old beliefs. That's not what you're doing. You're bringing in wisdom. And when you see that conflicts with things that you've believed your entire life, you eliminate those, and now you bring in this wisdom. So if you've believed that it's other people that's causing these feelings, now when you're confronted with the Four Noble Truths and you peer into that and you see the truth in it, now you need to practice the intention of renunciation where you're willing to let go of those false ideas, false beliefs, false opinions, and false views. And there's others as well, not just those. So you need to be able to keep an open mind, bring in this new wisdom, and that's what's actually going to help you awaken to enlightenment. And you also need to be willing to eliminate your unwholesomeness. There's a certain amount of unwholesome moral conduct that each unenlightened being is experiencing, where you're putting out harm through the way that you interact in your speech, your actions, and your livelihood. And as long as you're putting out harm, this harm is coming back to you. You can't cause other people to be discontent. Just like people can't cause you to be discontent, you cause your own mind to be discontent. You can't cause other people to be discontent, but you can cause them harm. Causing someone harm is to cause harm to their physical body, their material possessions, or their reputation. If you cause harm to someone's physical body, their material possessions, or their reputation, they're going to tend to want to cause you harm back. That's the way the natural law works. So as long as you're putting out harm, harm is going to keep coming back to you. So you need to be willing to let go of your unwholesome moral conduct. And this is where the intention of non-ill will comes in, where you have this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, active goodwill towards all beings, and you practice the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. Once you understand this, then we have what we need to be able to build on that and move into the moral conduct. But I'm going to pause here and see if you guys have any questions before we start talking about the moral conduct, because there's a foundation here of wisdom to be able to understand what is right view and right intention. Is there any questions here or online you guys have about the overview that I just gave of the wisdom section? Okay, I don't see any questions online either. All right, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to move into this moral conduct section, because once you understand right view, that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, when you start looking at your moral conduct, you start seeing that you're maybe bitter and harsh and hostile in certain situations towards your parents or your siblings or your life partner or your children or your neighbors or that person you don't even know at the store, or maybe the airline person at the ticket counter. When your flight is delayed, your mind's craving permanence and you're really wanting that flight to take off on time, but all you're experiencing is impermanence, that not every single flight is going to take off on time. That's impermanence. There's going to be a maintenance issue, a weather issue, a crew issue. But if you firmly believe that the airline company is causing your anger, you might be bitter and harsh and hostile towards them through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. So once you understand the wisdom section, that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, the very next thing you need to understand is how to clean up your moral conduct. Because as long as you function in the world through your moral conduct, through your speech, actions, or livelihood in a harmful way, this is going to cause harm to others, and now this harm is going to come back to you. And how could you get to a peaceful and joyful mind and a peaceful and joyful life if you keep experiencing all this harm that's coming back to you over and over and over again? So I'm going to teach you this based on the original words of the Buddha. And when you're learning with the original words of the Buddha, it's important to make sure you understand that he's helping you to cultivate wisdom about the world around you, about the natural laws. Sometimes when people study moral conduct, they think about it like rules or commandments. That's not what the Buddha is doing. He's not teaching you rules or commandments. He's teaching you the natural laws, namely this natural law of karma. You might have heard this referred to as karma. This is the Sanskrit version of that word, where the original teachings of the Buddha are in the Pali language. So people who study the Pali language will typically use this word karma. If this translated to just one English word, I would just use that word because it'd be easier for everyone. But it doesn't translate to just one English word. So I need to use multiple words here. So I'll still use the word karma. What it means is cause and effect, or action and result. It's a sequence of events that whenever you make a decision, either wisely or unwisely, it's going to produce either wholesome karma or wholesome results, or it's going to produce unwholesome karma or unwholesome results. So the natural law of karma isn't anything mystical or magical. It's not punishments and rewards. It's not about who's to blame or who's at fault. There's no being or entity that's overseeing this and controlling who experiences what. It's your own decisions that are leading to any particular result. So for example, if I was walking down the beach and there's wind blowing in my face and I'm kicking up sand, well, that sand that's blowing back in my face, that's from a decision that I'm making. It's a cause and effect. It's a sequence of events that is occurring. Oftentimes people think that what they're experiencing in day-to-day life is good luck or bad luck, destiny or fate. Or they might think it's God or some entity called the universe. Or you might think that it's other people that are causing you to experience the things that you experience in your day-to-day life. This is not true. Everything you experience is a result of decisions that you're making. And the beauty in understanding this is if there's anything that you don't particularly care for that's going on in your life, all you need to do is cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you will experience different results. But if it's other people that are causing this, if it's good luck or bad luck, destiny or fate, God or some entity called universe or other people, you're locked in. You're stuck. You can't change anything about your life. You're just a robot at this point, right? But that's not true. That's not true reality. True reality is that it's your own decisions that are leading to any particular result. And if you're having difficulties to see this, ask yourself these types of questions. Who chose where you're sitting right now? Who chose the clothing that you're wearing? Who chose the hairstyle that you have? Who chose whether or not you ate breakfast this morning? Who chose where you live? Who chose the job or occupation that you have? Who chose the friends that you spend time with? These are all decisions that you're making. I could go on and on and on and on. You need to be able to see that your life is constructed of decisions that you're making. And like I said, the beauty in this is that if there's anything that you don't particularly care for that goes on in your life, you just cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you will experience different results. But if I walk down the beach with the wind blowing in my face and I'm kicking up sand and the wind keeps blowing the sand back in my face and I'm like, wow, this is such bad luck, right? Or, oh, it's destiny or fate that I'm getting this sand that's blowing back in my face. Or, oh, it's God or some entity called the universe that's controlling this. Or, oh, it's other people that are causing me to experience this. Then I just keep walking down the beach kicking up sand. Right? And I keep experiencing the same results over and over and over and over and over again. But when you understand the natural law of karma, of cause and effect, and it's your decisions that are leading to any particular result that you're experiencing, this is so empowering because now you can see all I need to do is stop kicking up sand and I will no longer experience sand blowing back in my face. So if there's anything in your life that you don't particularly care for, cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you will experience different results. So that's what the moral conduct section is about, is helping you to understand what are the wise decisions based on this natural law that's going to produce wholesome results for you in your day-to-day life. It's not rules or commandments. It's the Buddha helping you to cultivate wisdom of this natural law of karma. So I'm going to use his words to help you understand what he's teaching, because this is going to help you to be able to see the cause and effect between your moral conduct and how you interact with people, so that then you can actually experience more and more harmonious relationships, getting to the point where you're experiencing nothing but peace and joy. And remember, you're not believing any of this. You need to be able to learn it, which is what I'm going to help you to do, investigate it intellectually, but then you need to reflect on it to verify it, and then you need to practice it on a day-to-day basis for a consistent long-term period, and that's what's going to create the real transformation. So here's the words of the Buddha on right speech. He says, "In what, monks, is right speech? Refraining from lying, refraining from slander, refraining from harsh speech, refraining from frivolous speech." This is called right speech. So he's giving 4 things here that are unwise for us to do. And he's helping you to be able to see the natural law of karma here. So take something like lying, where we're telling a falsehood, where we're deliberately not speaking the truth. In this situation, we've all lied, right? As we were growing up as kids, we all lied. You can look at that and you can see it produced unwholesome results, that people got to the point where they distrusted us and we had difficulties in our relationships. If you do a lot of lying, you see that your mind is obsessively trying to figure out what you said to one person versus another. So how could you ever get to peace and joy if you go around lying? Also, if your boss is going to staff a new project that could be very improving for your career, if you're a person who's distrustful, unreliable, and undependable because you're lying, then your boss isn't going to staff you in that. And it's going to affect you in an unwholesome way. Your career is not going to grow and prosper versus if you were trustworthy and reliable and dependable. So you can see the natural law of karma here, that the Buddha is teaching the truth about something like lying. Then there's slander. Slander or gossip is to try to damage other people's reputation. This is the mind wanting to look good in front of other people. And the mind thinks the way to do this is to push other people down. It's kind of like if you went into a dark room and everybody has a candle, the mind thinks, well, if I put everybody else's candle out, my candle will shine brighter, right? But that's not true. We're in a dark room. We need everybody's candle to shine bright. So if you go into an environment where you're slandering and gossiping, you're damaging other people's reputation, at the height of this, the unwholesome karma that you experience is you can be murdered. There's been people that have been murdered for gossiping and slandering. It's all over the news. You can see it in multiple places. Remember, the teachings of the Buddha aren't teaching you the way the world should be. He's teaching you the way the world is. And if you go out into the world damaging people's reputation through slander or gossip, you can easily be killed or beat up, or your property can be destroyed. At the very least, if you're gossiping and slandering, those people are going to be gossiping and slandering about you. It's only a matter of time. When your back is turned, you've got these people used to gossiping and slandering because that's what you're doing. When your back is turned, they're going to be gossiping and slandering about you. So if you're not interested in people gossiping and slandering you, you're going to need to eliminate that where you're not gossiping and slandering. Because the way the natural law of karma works is whatever you put out, it's going to come back to you. So that's why the Buddha is teaching that. Refraining from harsh speech is paying attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. When you speak, if you have a craving, desire, attachment where you really want something and you're really expecting something and you're getting angry and frustrated and you're trying to convince these people to do things your way, you might be bitter and harsh and hostile through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. And as long as you're being harsh and bitter through your speech, it's not going to produce harmonious relationships. You're just damaging your relationships. So the Buddha is teaching you to eliminate harsh speech, where you can pay attention to your tone, tempo, and word choice. And you speak different languages, perhaps. Maybe you speak more than one language. So you're going to need to pay attention to all those different languages and learn how to speak gentle. That when you interact with people, that you can speak gentle. And you'll find this to be the most challenging in relationships where you're the closest. Your parents, your siblings, life partner, your children, people like this where you're really close to them, you'll find it very challenging to speak in gentle ways. And this is why you might think that they're the problem, because in those relationships, you're having the deepest craving, desire, attachment. You're craving for them to be a certain way. And when they're that way, you're happy. But when they're not doing things your way, you might be angry or frustrated or some other discontent feeling. And that's where the harsh speech comes out. And the mind thinks that if I'm bitter and harsh and hostile to this person, they'll do things my way and I'll get what I want. But you're just damaging your reputation. You're damaging your relationships when you're being harsh and bitter and hostile with them. So the Buddha teaches you to speak gentle. And then refraining from frivolous speech. What frivolous speech is like unbeneficial or unpurposeful speech. If you've ever been in a conversation with someone that's not really truly a conversation, where they're just like yada 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 yada. Yada 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 yada. Yada, yada, yada. It's like, oh my gosh, when is this person going to stop talking, right? It's not even a conversation. It's like broadcasting, right? Maybe you've been in this type of situation, or maybe you've been this person where you've actually been broadcasting to people, right? It's like 20, 30 minutes and it's like nobody else has talked except this one person. That is frivolous speech. It's unpurposeful, unbeneficial speech. The person just has a craving to talk, rather than being purposeful and beneficial. And if you speak this way, over time, people are going to tune you out. They're going to be disinterested in talking with you because it's just like, oh my gosh, this person, they're just talking and talking pointless things, right? So if you have frivolous speech, it's going to produce unwholesome karma or unwholesome results in your life. That's why the Buddha teaches you to eliminate it. So this is the top line in right speech from the Eightfold Path, eliminating lying, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. And once you're doing that and you're practicing that well, you go deeper into this next teaching, which is called the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. Because as I mentioned, the Eightfold Path is a core central teaching that everything else plugs into. So the 5 factors of well-spoken speech is actually giving you a deeper level teaching beyond what you see in the Eightfold Path that you're going to need to tweak and integrate into your life in order to really produce harmonious relationships in your day-to-day life. Here he's teaching you to speak at the proper time. What you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. Speaking at the proper time is to make sure that you're not interrupting people. Interrupting people is coming from your mind's craving. You just can't wait to jump in there and talk, and you cut people off. And you probably don't like it when people do that to you, and other people aren't going to like it when you do it to them. So the Buddha is teaching you that it's unwise. Just wait your turn and wait until this person's ready to talk and listen to what it is you have to say, and then you can talk. Also, speaking at the proper time is making sure your mind is prepared to talk. If you're angry or frustrated or agitated or any of these other discontent feelings, like annoyed, that's all that's going to come out of your mind. It's not the proper time to talk. You're going to just be bitter and harsh and hostile. You're going to damage your relationships. So make sure your mind is prepared to talk, that it's the proper time. And then the third aspect of speaking at the proper time is making sure the other person is ready to talk. If someone else is angry and bitter and hostile and harsh, not the proper time to talk. They're not going to actually understand and take in what it is you have to say. The conversation isn't going to go well. It's best to just walk away in that situation. Then speaking the truth, we already talked about that up here, eliminating lying, making sure that you're not just spreading conspiracy theories and unfounded truths, but instead that you're actually speaking truthful things that you've independently verified for yourself. Then you'd like to speak gently. This is, again, paying attention to your tone, tempo, and your word choice. And if you speak multiple languages, you're going to need to look at that. You're going to need to maybe say things like please and thank you, sir and ma'am, and things of this nature. In the Thai language, we have all kinds of ways to be able to talk to people and make sure that they know we're being polite and respectful. We have ka and kap and kap home and nakap and all these other ways to refer to people and talk to people so they know we're being loving and kind and warm and gentle. So you're going to need to look at the languages that you speak and find a way to pay attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice so that people know you're being polite, kind, friendly, respectful, that you're being gentle in the way that you're speaking. Then you'd like to speak beneficially. This is not necessarily about the topic that you're talking about. It's more so about the method that you're using. You'd like to be clear and concise and precise in the way that you speak. Whereas if you're just rambling chit-chat, people aren't going to be able to understand what it is that you have to say. They're going to be working really hard to try to figure out what it is that you're sharing, and people are just going to tune you out. And then ultimately, you'd like to wrap all of this in a mind of loving kindness. Loving kindness is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. And you like to wrap your speech in all of that. So what we're talking about here is practicing to the point where you can be harmonious with all individuals around you. But you can't believe this. You need to be able to independently verify it for yourself, because these natural laws affect you whether you're aware of them or not. So look at these 5 factors of well-spoken speech and contrast it to a recent conversation that didn't go well for you. Were you speaking at the proper time? Were you speaking the truth? Were you gentle? Were you speaking beneficially? Were you speaking with a mind of loving kindness? If you're honest with yourself, you can look at that situation where the conversation didn't go well, and you'll see that you and or the other person wasn't practicing these 5 factors. But then look at conversations that have gone well, because you've had conversations that have gone well. And remember, these natural laws are affecting you whether you're aware of it or not. You can see you and the other person were using all 5 factors. You were speaking at the proper time. You were speaking the truth. You spoke gently. You spoke beneficially. And you spoke with a mind of loving kindness. And that's why that conversation went well. So these natural laws affect you whether you're aware of it or not. And what you would like to do is more and more consciously be practicing these 5 factors, dialing this in closer and closer in your life, understanding that the relationships that you're closest in, you'll find it to be the most challenging. again, parents, siblings, life partners, children, people like this, you'll find it to be the most challenging to use these 5 factors. But that's where the real work is being done. You're doing this inner work to grow and develop and interact with people in the world in a certain way. In Thai, there's a word that we use to describe people who are very successful in a certain life, village, or their career, or things like this. If there's a certain village, there might be some village elders that everybody knows, like, wow, these people are really successful. And when we say successful, I don't mean financially successful. What I mean is that they're successful in their relationships. Being successful is to have harmonious relationships with everyone around you. Anybody can go outside and make a bunch of money. Anybody can do that. But to have harmonious relationships with everybody around you, that takes a lot of wisdom. And that person would be very successful. So in a given village, there could be village elders who people know are very successful. They have harmonious relationships with everyone around them. And people tend to go to these people for guidance and suggestions and to get help. And what we call this in Thai is we call it barami. What the word barami means is the one who people listen to. If you have barami, that means you're the one who people listen to. People know you're wise, and they're going to come to you and seek guidance and understanding. So in each Thai village, there's usually some village elders who have barami. And when you're having certain challenges, you usually go to the village elders and you talk to them because they speak in ways that are wise. They're using these 5 factors of well-spoken speech. They're not causing harm to people through their speech. So people feel very comfortable to talk to them and seek their guidance and advisement. So if you're interested in establishing barami, where you're the one who people listen to, you're going to need to improve the way that you interact with people. Because as long as you cause harm through your speech, people aren't going to be interested in interacting with you. So if you dial in these 5 factors of well-spoken speech for a consistent long-term period, you will develop barami, where you will be the one who people listen to. So here, we're referring to this as right speech, because that's what was going on during the lifetime of the Buddha. People were having speech, and that's really all they had. But today, we might think about this as right communication, because we have much more than speech. We have emails, social media posts, text messages, voicemails. We have many different ways to communicate. And you would like all your communication to be with the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. So for example, if you're really angry and frustrated and you go over to your keyboard and you're pounding out an email, that's not the proper time to be communicating, right? Maybe hit save on that email instead of send, and come back and look at that later. Because if you put out that bitterness and harshness and hostility through that email, through that communication, it's all just going to come back to you, right? Or say you went to a job interview. In this job interview, you knocked it out of the park and you did extremely well at this job interview. And they're like, wow, I'd like to hire this person. Well, if they look at your social media and they see this bitterness and harshness and hostility, you're probably not going to get the job. So you would like all your communication to be using the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. That's why I suggest you think of this as right communication or wise communication rather than just speech, because you're going to need to make sure that in all the different ways that you communicate, that it's harmless. And the Buddha is giving you the guidance of how to do that based on the natural laws. Now, if you read this book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment, in chapter 5, I share details about right speech. I go into detail about each one of these 5 factors of well-spoken speech, because you need to know the 5 factors of well-spoken speech to be able to get to harmonious relationships and to also get to the point where the mind's enlightened, where you're experiencing complete peace and joy in the mind. But in your journey from where you are today to practicing these 5 factors of well-spoken speech, you're going to need to study, and you're going to have certain times over the next 3 months, 6 months or so, or maybe you're in a business meeting, or maybe you're on a phone call with your mom and you're trying to remember the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, and it's just really challenging for you. And you can't be like, Mom, hold on, I'm getting really angry here. I'm getting really frustrated. I know there's these 5 factors that I need to speak with you about. Hold on a second, Mom, I'm really angry. I need to find those, right? You can't do that. So you're going to need to be able to remember something to be able to practice. And that's what I put in the book, in addition to these 5 factors, is to speak polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. If you can remember this in the heat of the moment when that frustration is arising, to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful, this will actually help you, right? Of course, you need the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. You wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment or harmonious relationships without those. But in the meantime, over the next few months, over the next period of time, if you're in a business meeting or you're on a phone call, you're not going to be able to consult your book. So if you can just remember to speak polite, kind, friendly, respectful, this will really help you. But go deeper into it and understand the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. So let me pause here and see if you guys have any questions on right speech. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask? Remember, we have microphones here. And then for those of you guys online, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. Yes, ma'am. If you could come get a microphone, that'd be great.
So I understand the importance, vitality, and significance right speech, but I have a question. What if I speak at a proper time, in a beneficial way, and also with a mindset of loving kindness, but still my goodwill doesn't return with goodwill, but instead with negativity, hostility, and even some vicious remarks? How should I view this and adjust my mindset?
Sure. So
thank you.
In order to get to harmonious relationships, you're going to need to use all 5 factors. You mentioned 3 of them, which is great, but you're going to need to practice with all 5. Speaking at the proper time, what you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. And when you're practicing that through your speech, it shouldn't be with any expectation of anything in return. Just because you're speaking that way doesn't mean the other person's going to speak back to you that way. Because of the world of impermanence, the world is impermanent. Some people are going to be polite, kind, friendly, respectful to you. Other people are not. But what the mind does is it craves permanence. When people speak to you polite, kind, friendly, respectful, you like that. You're really happy. But when someone's disrespectful or unkind, the mind gets agitated or frustrated. That's because of the craving for permanence, wanting this permanence when you live in an impermanent world. So you need to get to the point where you reside unaffected by that other person's speech, understanding that their anger, their hostility, their bitterness is coming from them. It's not coming from you. All this is just sound going into the ears. But with your craving, you're going to see it either as agreeable or disagreeable. And if it's agreeable, you'll get happy. And if it's disagreeable, you'll get sad or frustrated or angry. But just think of it as it's just sound. That's all it is. That you don't think of it as agreeable or disagreeable to you. It's just sound. And if this person's bitter and harsh and hostile, you're not the one causing it. It's their own mind that's causing it. And the best thing to do in that situation is just walk away. And if they get more bitter and more hostile when you walk away, that's actually helping you to be able to see you made a wise decision. Because sometimes when you walk away, they'd actually get more angry and more frustrated, right? Because that's their craving. They're craving for you to be in a conversation with them. And when you walk away, their mind and their ego doesn't like that. So they're going to get more and more angry. But they can't eliminate that anger as long as you stay in the conversation with them. But when you walk away, some of their craving is going to get eliminated. And now they're going to be less and less angry over time. So you need to train your mind to be unaffected by this bitterness and hostility. But as you practice more and more with the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, you'll see that the people around you will tend to speak to you in the same way. But you need to be able to do this for an extended period of time. I'm talking years, right? Like if you do this for a month or 2, it's not like mom and dad and brothers and sisters are all going to change because you've been bitter and harsh and hostile in the past. And now you've got to experience that coming back to you because you put it out in the past. That was your unwise decisions from the past. This is your old unwholesome karma coming back to you. If you could snap your fingers and instantly start practicing the teachings of the Buddha perfectly today, which you can't, but if you could, you're still going to experience unwholesome results for the next few years because you've made unwise decisions in the past. So you're going to need to practice this type of thing that I'm talking about for multiple years. And more brothers, sisters, mom, dad, life partners, they can see, oh my gosh, she's always so kind and polite, and slowly but surely they will start transforming their mind and they will start treating you differently. But you shouldn't do this with that expectation, because even when you're enlightened, you're going to still have people talk to you occasionally with bitterness and hostility. But 99.99999% of the time, you'll see people will be loving and kind and warm and gentle with you, because that's the way you're being. But it's going to take you multiple years to get to that. So in the meantime, whenever someone's bitter and harsh and hostile, you need to understand the natural law of karma, that if you put out bitterness and harshness and hostility, that's all just going to come back to you. So you need to shut it down. It's kind of like an oil pipe. If an oil pipe has busted and is spewing oil all over the world, you're not going to go clean up the oil on the ground first. You're going to shut the oil pipe down, right? So that stops the oil from spewing all over the world. So you would like to stop spewing this unwise, unwholesome moral conduct into the world, shut that down, and now you clean up the mess, which is all the old unwholesome karma that's coming back to you from the past. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Thank you, David.
Mm-hmm.
Just one question. The 5 factors, those are proper time, truth, gentle, beneficial, loving kindness,
Mm-hmm.
and polite, kind, friendly, respectful,
Mm-hmm.
wholesome. That's just sort of a guide, but the actual 5 factors are the time and truth, gentle,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is that correct?
Yeah, the 5 factors are what I shared there with the words of the Buddha. This polite, kind, friendly, respectful is just kind of like a way to just keep this in mind, just as kind of like a light guide for you,
Right.
that if you can't remember the 5 factors, then you've kind of got this there for you.
Okay. Just want my notes to be right.
Okay.
Do you remember how do you spell the Thai word, barmi?
Barami, I haven't translated it to English in terms of the characters, but you could sound it out.
Barmi.
Barami.
Barmi. There must be an 8 in there.
That
somewhere.
rolling R is going to be a hard one to. Yes, sir. It just takes a second to engage. They're Buddhist microphones. You got to be patient with them.
Okay. I have a question about having an objective when you speak to somebody, like if you're in business or whatever, and you have to go there with a clear outcome that you're trying to coerce action or an objective.
Mm-hmm.
But, so it's kind of on a ethical guideline. Like, how do I convince myself to speak right and have care of there when I'm trying to ideally sell them on something?
Yeah. So all of this here that the Buddha is teaching you, he's guiding you to be able to speak without craving, desire, attachment. Craving, desire, attachment is that longing, yearning. So if you go into a business meeting with a longing, yearning, and I have to convince these people of this, and I can only be happy if I leave this meeting having convinced these people with that, you're going to push and push and push and push and push, right? And what do you do when people try to push you and force you to do something? You resist, right? So that's why the Buddha is teaching you that it's unwise to do that. But also, if you are all the way on the other side, where you could care less about what's going on and you're just lackadaisical and you just walked into the meeting just like whatever happens, happens, I don't care, right? That's not going to produce beneficial results either. So the Buddha is teaching you to come to the middle, where you can make wise decisions in the way that you speak, where you're comfortable with everybody being able to listen to what it is that you have to share, understanding that they might not be able to make a decision by the end of this business meeting, and that's okay. In fact, you might even prefer that, because if you were able to convince them in the business meeting to make decisions your way, well, then later, once they think about it, they might actually change their mind. It's not a stable, steady decision because they haven't had time to think about it. So what you would like to be able to get to is where you're not craving and longing, yearning to convince these people, but instead you're giving them information to help them see your point of view. And then if they would like to step away to be able to think about it, to be able to get to a solid decision, like I said, you might actually prefer that, because now once they come to you with the decision, you know it's solid and it's reliable. And now you guys can walk forward together and actually implement whatever it is that you're choosing to do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
Me? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I struggle with this one at my job a lot. I'm and sometimes I come across something that's not appropriate that someone has done. So it's truthful, and I need to communicate it to the management, right? In a proper time, polite. But it's ended up hurting someone. Would that still be slandering, or would that it might cause them to lose their job? Or do you just how do you handle that?
Yeah, if somebody's done something inappropriate and now you're bringing it to upper management's understanding, whatever that person chooses to do, that's their decision. It's not your decision at that point. And now, if that person that you're reporting and sharing that they've done this thing that's unwise, if they lose their job, that's their karma. That's the results of their decisions. You actually didn't make the decision to do the thing that they did. You're just spotting it, and now you're bringing it to the attention of the person that needed to know that information. But you would still like to communicate in a professional way, right? You're not going to draw conclusions. You're not going to say things that aren't true. You're going to speak in a very professional, polite, and respectful way using these 5 factors. But now whatever upper management decides to do, that's a decision for them to make. That's not your decision. And if this person ends up losing their job, that's from their decision, that they made an unwise decision, and now they're experiencing their karma, the results of their decisions.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I think you had a question, right? Yeah, can you get a microphone? That way the people online can hear you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The truth is very hurtful. How should I respond to them?
You can't hurt somebody. It's not possible. If they're experiencing painful feelings, it's coming from their own mind. So if you speak the truth and someone is hurt by that, their mind is causing it themselves. But the Buddha does give deeper teachings, even beyond what you see here, where he talks about understanding if you're speaking what is true, correct, and beneficial, that you should also know whether this thing that you're going to speak is either unwelcomed or whether it's welcomed, right? Because if it's something that you have to say that's unwelcomed, even though it's true, correct, and beneficial, you would like to be sure you speak at the proper time. You still need to make sure it's the proper time, because it might not be the proper time to say that particular thing. But if you have craving, you'll want to hurry up and say it right now. And you got to pull that back, where you get to the point where you might need to wait a few days or a week or two before you can deliver that information to that person. So even though you're speaking the truth, it's correct and it's beneficial, make sure you know whether it's unwelcomed and disagreeable, because if it's unwelcomed and disagreeable, you need to really make sure you practice speaking at the proper time, that their mind's willing to understand what it is that you have to share. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, I don't see, we have a question coming in on Zoom. See, this is from Raphael. This is at the beginning, when you are yet internalizing the right speech, what did you do? For every communication, did you use, am I polite, kind, friendly, and respectful as a mantra for every conversation communication you had? No, that's not what I did. Instead, what I did is, the teachings of the Buddha are very practical. There's none of this mystical, magical stuff, whereas if you just, have a mantra that you say every day, it's going to magically produce beneficial results for you. The teachings of the Buddha are very practical. So what I did is I had these 5 factors of well-spoken speech, and I would review them in the morning, and I would refresh my memory. So for about 2 minutes, I would sit there and I'd read them. And then I'd go out in my day and I'd have all my business meetings, all my conversations, all the things that I was going to do that day. And then at lunchtime, I would review the 5 factors of well-spoken speech again. And I would look back at those 4, 5, 6 hours worth of meetings, and I would say, oh, I wasn't speaking at the proper time. I kept interrupting that guy. I need to work on that. Or, oh, I could have been more gentle when I was speaking with my wife. That would have been better, right? So I started analyzing my speech in the morning, at lunchtime, and then all throughout my afternoon, I would be having meetings again. And then in the evening, I would look at the 5 factors of well-spoken speech again. And I needed to do this for several weeks so that I could dial this in closer and closer and closer. And whenever you're experiencing unwholesome results coming back to you, I would look to see, was I speaking at the proper time? Did I speak the truth gently, beneficial, or with a mind of loving kindness? Because obviously that person choosing to be bitter, harsh, and hostile is coming from their mind. But there's things that you can do in order to minimize the potential for that. So not only is the Buddha teaching you how to speak in wholesome ways so that you'll experience wholesome results, but he's actually teaching you how to navigate this world with unenlightened beings, because there's a lot of people in the world who are unenlightened. And even though they're causing their own anger and sadness, you can trigger their mind. And now it's their mind that's causing it, but it's your speech that was kind of like the condition that produced this. So you would like to get to the point where whenever you're experiencing unwholesome results, that you look at your speech and look at the decisions that you made that could have contributed to this. You didn't cause it, but you could have contributed to it through the way that you're interacting. And now you slowly but surely kind of refine your speech. It's kind of like if you were creating a wood sculpture, you're gradually chipping away at this, creating a more and more beautiful sculpture. So you're creating this better and better human being on the path to enlightenment. That's what you're doing, is you're creating this better and better human being. And you're going to need to sculpt it and sculpt it and sculpt it. So the teachings of the Buddha are very practical. If you just study the 5 factors in the morning, review those in the afternoon to see what you did well and what you didn't do well, and then again in the evening, looking over your afternoon, what did you do well, what you didn't do well. Now, slowly but surely, you can refine what it is that you do and experience more and more improvement to the point where eventually it's just natural. It's your first nature. One of the ways to think about the path to enlightenment is it's like upgrading the operating system in your mind, that in the unenlightened state, you're kind of like on this old archaic operating system. Unenlightened 1.0, right? And it's very difficult to be on this old software. But slowly but surely, you're upgrading the software in your mind. And eventually, even though it's challenging to go through all these upgrades, eventually it's like, oh my gosh, this software works so much better. Why didn't they put these icons here to begin with? Why didn't they put these settings over here to begin with? That old software was really cumbersome to work with. So on your way to this new operating system within your mind, it'll be challenging as you're making your way to that. But as you get up and running on this new operating system, your mind just functions effortlessly through this. And the way that you do that is you cultivate this wisdom little by little each day, and then you get better and better at doing this. Okay? All right. So I think that's all the questions here. So now let's look at right action. This is really straightforward. And oh, you have a question? Yes, ma'am.
Yes. I got a complicated situation. So I got terminated by misconduct, and I felt I didn't do anything wrong. And according this course and yesterday, I am not sure what I'm going to do. Should I let go? Remain my lawful and rightful action for this?
For me, I would never share with you what you should or shouldn't do, because you need to make those choices for yourself, because I can't know all the variables 100% of what it is that has transpired at this job, and to give you, a yes or a no about what you should or shouldn't do, because each person needs to make decisions that are wise for themselves. But what I can do is I can help you understand the natural laws, that if you are going to try to get your job back at this company, this is the way that you would like to interact and speak. And if you're not going to go get your job back and you're going to go get another job, a different job, this is the way that you would like to interact. But whether you choose to go forward with that job or not, it's a choice for you to make. Personally, for me, even though I'm not working the workforce any longer in terms of careers, if there was a company who fired me, that means that there's people in that company that don't want me to work there. And there's been enough of those people that they were able to fire me. I wouldn't be interested in working at that company, because even if I was able to somehow get to the point where they gave me the job back, there's still these people who are against me. And now they're not going to be helping to motivate my career and accelerate my career. I'd much rather go to a new company where there's not that history, and now I can build a better career. But whether you choose to do that or not, that's a decision for you to make, because it's only you that knows all the variables in the situation.
Yes, thank you. So actually, I don't want to go back to the company, but due to the situation, I felt I'm innocent, and I want to go to the attribution.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So this case, I will feel like frustrated and to interact with the people from the company.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I'm kind of like start self-doubt. So yeah.
So that frustration is coming from your craving. The mind's longing, yearning, it's craving permanence. So you're going to need to really get a handle on that if you're going to go in and have a meeting about this. And then you'd like to use the 5 factors of well-spoken speech in all your meetings. And it's going to be very challenging for you to do that. But if you're training your mind more and more, you'll be able to be better and better at doing that. And that's what you would ultimately like to be able to get to. Still doesn't mean that it's going to go your way, because those people are independent thinkers and they're going to make decisions based on their things that they have going on in their mind. But if you're going to experience wholesome results, whether it's at this company or any other company, you're going to need to learn more and more to speak with the 5 factors of well-spoken speech.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so now I'm going to teach you guys right action. This is the 4th step on the Eightfold Path. Here, the Buddha says, in what, monks, is right action? Refraining from taking life, refraining from taking what is not given, refraining from sexual misconduct. This is called right action. So here he's talking about 3 actions with the body that could cause harm. And if you cause harm, this harm will come back to you. And here he's just talking about it in a very general way. But if you look at the 5 precepts, which is a deeper level teaching that plugs into the Eightfold Path, he expands this and gives you much more details on this. It's not just this that he's talking about here, because the idea of sexual misconduct, your first question is probably, well, what is sexual misconduct? What does that mean, right? So the Buddha actually teaches you in the 5 precepts what is sexual misconduct. And he talks about things like having sex with minors, raping people, going outside relationships, things like this. So you need to be able to study the teachings more deeply to be able to fully understand this. But what he's teaching you is to not cause harm through your bodily actions. And he's not giving you an exhaustive list, right? Notice he doesn't say, don't walk up to someone and punch them in the face. Right? He doesn't say that. He's not giving you an exhaustive list of every single thing that you could potentially do to cause harm with the body. But you can know through the natural law of karma, of cause and effect, that if you punch someone in the face, they're probably going to punch you back. Right? Or they're going to pull out a knife or a gun, or their friends or their family are going to come attack you. So you would like to make sure that you're not causing any harm through your bodily actions. Notice that the Buddha doesn't say it would be unwise to drag your suitcase through the aisle of a plane and run over people's feet and bump into their knees. He doesn't say that, right? Because airplanes didn't even exist during his lifetime. But if you understand this factor, that if you cause harm through your bodily actions, it's going to come back to you, you can figure out all those individual things. So here he's just giving you 3 simple ones, and then he expands it for you in the 5 precepts, but you're going to need to come up with this for yourself. I'll give you a heads up on this sexual misconduct, because we're going to be studying this when we get to chapter 7 of this program. That's the 5 precepts. Sexual misconduct does not include same-gender relationships. This is how wise this individual was 2,500 years ago. He understood that same-gender relationships doesn't cause harm. If there's 2 loyal, loving, consenting adults choosing to have sex with each other, they're not causing any harm to anybody. There's never been a time in human history where everybody had sex with the opposite gender because of impermanence. If everybody had sex with the opposite gender, that would be permanence. But we don't live in that world. Some people prefer to have sex with opposite gender, right? Some people have sex with the same gender, right? This has been going on since the beginning of human history. People today don't necessarily understand this, but the Buddha understood it. You can see it. He talks about it in his teachings, where he's essentially talking about same-gender relationships. So he was aware that they existed, but he understood that 2 loyal, loving, consenting adults choosing to have sex, they're not actually causing harm. And he also understood the universal truth of impermanence, that not everybody's going to have sex with the opposite gender. So if you're someone who has same-gender relationships, or you know someone who does, you're not causing any harm to anybody. If somebody gets gets angry or mad because of your relationship, that's their craving, desire, attachment. They're craving for everyone to have sex with the opposite gender. And they don't understand they live in an impermanent world, that not everybody's going to have sex with the opposite gender. So you'll see this in more detail when we get to chapter 7. But for right now, I'll just give you the heads up that this sexual misconduct doesn't include same-gender relationships. So then we'll talk about right livelihood, and then we'll wrap it up for today. So the Buddha here under right livelihood, he says, in what, monks, is right livelihood? Here, monks, the noble disciple, having given up wrong livelihood, keeps himself by right livelihood. Again, the Buddha is just saying something very general and very broad in the Eightfold Path, because his teachings have other teachings that are more detailed that plug into the Eightfold Path. So here what I'm going to teach you is what's called the first fold of purification, of how to purify your livelihood. What a livelihood is how you choose to sustain your life. If you choose to sustain your life off of causing harm to others, this harm is going to come back to you. So the Buddha is teaching you how to get to a point where you can have a fulfilling and satisfying career and you're not causing harm to others through your livelihood. So here is the first teaching as part of the first fold of purification. He's giving you 5 livelihoods that would cause harm: business and weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, or poisons. If you did any of these 5 livelihoods, it's going to cause harm to others. You're sustaining your life through acquiring the resources that you need to sustain your life by causing harm to others. And if you cause harm to others through your livelihood, that harm is going to come back to you. And these are the 5 that he's pointing out for you so that you can see that and then look at your livelihood to decide if that's what you're doing. But remember, these teachings are not belief. You need to independently verify this. Don't believe what you're seeing here. So let me show you how to do this. Let's just take one, like substances that cause heedlessness. Let's just say I was standing on the street corner selling crystal methamphetamine and heroin, cocaine into the community. I'm selling substances that cause heedlessness. I'm causing harm to the community. And now this harm is going to come back to me. These people are getting addicted to these substances and they're going out and doing all kinds of unwise things in order to bring me money. Maybe they're stealing. Maybe they're selling their body for sexual services and doing different things like this in order to bring me money. Well, now standing on the street corner selling substances that cause heedlessness, I'm very likely to get murdered. I can get beat up. I can get robbed, I can get arrested, or I can get addicted to these substances myself. This is the unwholesome karma, the unwholesome results that I'm experiencing as a result of my decisions. So when you see this kind of thing, you can independently verify what the Buddha is teaching you here to be able to see that it's the truth. But remember, this is the natural law of karma. This is functioning at a much higher level than human laws. So human laws are imperfect because they're created by human beings. The natural law of karma isn't created by human beings and it's not enforced by human beings. It's something that is cause and effect. It's a natural law, just like gravity. Gravity is not controlled by anybody. It just happens. It's a natural law, just like the natural law of karma. So this natural law of karma is functioning at a much higher level. You know, most places in the world, it's illegal to stand on the street corner and sell crystal methamphetamine and heroin and cocaine. There's some places that it's not actually illegal to sell those kinds of things. But let's take, for example, something like alcohol. In a lot of places, alcohol is legal. The government has made it legal. Whereas if I was interested in being a cashier at a liquor store, I could go do that job and the government's not going to arrest me for that. They're going to be like, yeah, you'd like to be a cashier? Go ahead. You can be a cashier. But if you understand the natural law of karma, which is functioning at a much higher level than human laws, you might understand that it's unwise to do that. Because liquor stores are places where people usually get robbed, people get murdered, people get beat up, things like this. And at the very least, you're going to be dealing with intoxicated clientele that are coming in there from time to time. So this is a natural law that is functioning at a much higher level than the human laws. If you learn the natural law of karma and you function through the natural law of karma, you will never have any issues with any government because you're practicing a law that is much higher than these human laws that people are practicing. So if the government says, yeah, you can be that cashier, we're not going to arrest you, you might understand through the natural law of karma, unwise, I'm not interested in doing that. So this is one aspect of purifying your livelihood, is eliminating businesses and weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness and poisons. And you can independently verify this through the way that I just showed you with one of these. But then the Buddha teaches you how to practice a livelihood in a way that you're going to have success and build up your career to be very successful. He's teaching you how to get to the point where you have enthusiasm and ambition and you're very successful in your career. He's explaining to you here how to actually perform your livelihood. Because if you do any of these kinds of things, it's going to damage your ability to have success in your livelihood. He talks about scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, and pursuing gain with gain. So I'll give you examples of these. So say, for example, I was a politician. Maybe I'm the mayor of the town that I live in. That's not one of those 5 livelihoods of weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness and poisons. I'm not causing any harm to be the mayor of the town. But if I was scheming and I was corrupt and I was doing backhanded deals, eventually people are going to find out about this. Now, 10, 15 years into my career, people find out and they're not going to be willing to reelect me. And now I find it very difficult to sustain my life. Right? So if you're scheming or corrupt in the work that you're doing, this is going to produce unwholesome karma for you. That's what the Buddha is teaching you. Or flattery. What flattery is where you're just giving insincere comments in order to be able to get people to buy something from you. So for example, if you've ever been to a store and you walked in and the person's like, oh my gosh, that shirt looks so beautiful on you. That color brings out the colors of your eyes. You know, I have these earrings over here that'll go really well with that shirt. Would you like to come look at them? This is flattery, just to try to get you to buy something. And if you have these insincere comments like this, people aren't going to be interested in doing business with you. They're going to be like, ugh. Right? If you've ever been to that kind of place, you probably felt like you wanted to walk out as soon as they started saying those kinds of things. That's the unwholesome karma. So you're not interested in flattering people just to get them to buy things from you or to do business with you. Then there's hinting. What hinting is where you're not clear and concise about the work that you're doing. Like say all of us were on a project team together and we needed to go brief the boss on the project that we're doing. We'd like to be clear and concise about the work that we're doing. Rather than rambling all over the place, we'd like to be very professional and clear in the way that we're presenting our work so that then our boss, our manager, can understand what it is that we're doing and what we're accomplishing on the project. Then there's belittling. This is being degrading or diminishing to your customers, your coworkers, your business partners, your competition. If you're degrading or diminishing your business partners, your customers, your coworkers, your competition, this is not going to look good for you and you're not going to be successful in your livelihood. Sometimes people think the way to be successful is to degrade and diminish your competition, and that makes you look good. But to your customers, they see through that and they're not interested in that. So if there's somebody who asks you a question like, hey, what does your competition do? The best way to handle this kind of thing is just say, you know, I'm not 100% sure what they do, but this is what I can do for you. If you're interested in having this is what I can do for you, right? That way you're not talking in degrading, disparaging ways about other people. Because if you degrade your customers, your coworkers, your business partners, or your competition, it's not going to go well for you. You're not going to be able to build up your career. So you would like to eliminate any kind of belittling in your career. And then when the Buddha is talking about pursuing gain with gain, what he's talking about here is just going to work for the paycheck. That's all you care about is the money. That you don't care about the product or the service. All you really care about is the money. That's the only reason why you're going to this job. If you're working that kind of job, initially when you first start working there, you might feel very enthused. You might be very excited about that job because you're getting all this money. But then over time, that's going to burn out. It's going to fade away. And you're going to be dragging yourself to work each day. If you've ever been in that kind of job, you might have felt like it was like a dead end and you were just dragging yourself to work each day. You were unmotivated in the work that you're doing. So you would like to get to the point where it's not the money that is bringing you to this job, that you have certain enthusiasm and ambition, motivation towards the product or service that you're offering, because that money, that craving for that is going to burn out. And then you're going to be left in a job that you feel unmotivated about. So the Buddha is teaching you how to get to this point where you have enthusiasm and ambition in the work that you do. You might be encountering people like that here in Thailand. You know, if you go outside, there might be a person on the street corner selling mango and sticky rice. And she can't imagine doing anything else other than selling you that mango and sticky rice. This person might have woke up this morning, went out in their mango grove. They gleefully picked each individual mango, brushed them off, cleaned them up, brought them to the market, made their little sticky rice and their coconut milk. They're standing there in the market with a big old smile on their face, just slicing up that mango, putting it over top of the sticky rice and pouring the coconut milk on it. And then they're handing it to you with a big old smile on their face and collecting their 40 baht. And they can't imagine doing anything else in the world other than selling you that mango and sticky rice. So what you need to be able to do in order to be successful in this world is you need to find what is your mango and sticky rice. What is it that you enjoy so thoroughly that even if you didn't get paid for it, you would still do it? That's how much you enjoy this work. Because that person out there that's selling the mango and sticky rice, that's the way they think. That 40 baht is just money to be able to help them keep doing what it is that they need to do in order to survive in the world. They enjoy this work so much that they would do it even if they didn't get paid for it. But of course, they need to get paid for it. You need to get paid for what it is that you do. But you'd like to find something that you have ambition and enthusiasm and motivation towards doing, that it's not the money that's motivating you to do this. Because then each day you show up to work, it doesn't even feel like work. You just thoroughly enjoy what you're doing each and every day. Because if you drag yourself to work each day, you're not going to get to peace and joy, right? If you're peaceful and joyful at home, but you despise going to work, you're not going to have a peaceful and joyful mind and a peaceful and joyful life. So the Buddha is helping you to be able to get to this peace and joyful mind, but also a peaceful and joyful life. So this is what's called the first fold of purification, that you would like to work on this. And this is what somebody's usually first working on for their livelihood. But inside of our book series, in volume 12, chapter 14, I have the second fold of purification, which is going to get you to that point where you thoroughly enjoy the work that you do on a day-to-day basis. So if you're in a job right now that you don't particularly care for, or if you're in between jobs and you're looking for a new job, you might decide to look at volume 12, chapter 14, because this is going to give you both the first fold and second fold of training that the Buddha is guiding you to be able to understand this natural law, so that then you can get to the point where you have ambition, enthusiasm, and motivation about the work that you do. These books are on the bookshelf back there, but they're also online. You can download them. You can get them on Amazon. So you're welcome to explore that if you like. Again, volume 12, chapter 14. So do you guys have any questions about any of the things that we were just talking about with right speech, where you're working to be able to get to the point where you have harmless communication, both your verbal conduct, but then also your social media, your text, chat, your emails, all of this should be harmless, using the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, where you're speaking at the proper time, what you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. And then you'd like to get to the point where your bodily actions are harmless as well, where you're not causing any harm through your bodily actions. And then your livelihood is such that you're not causing harm through your livelihood. You're not conducting yourself through business and weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness and poisons, and you've eliminated scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, and pursuing gain with gain. So I saw a couple of you guys had questions. Those of you guys online, you can put it in the Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like.
Thank you so much, David. I was wondering how people in Thailand perceive like butcher shops or people who sell meat, because I've seen a few, so I'm just curious, those people don't follow teachings, or maybe just the culture right now changing.
Sure. So not everybody understands the teachings of the Buddha to the level of depth that you're learning them right now, because you're taking formal learning, formal education. The vast majority of the world doesn't actually study with the original words of the Buddha, so they may not even know that this is actually his teachings. This is one of the big misunderstandings in Thailand, is people think that if you don't kill the animal, that you're not going to experience unwholesome karma. But that's kind of like if I stole the car and I gave it to you and you were driving the car, you're going to get arrested, right? Just the fact that I stole the car doesn't mean you're not going to have problems. You're going to have problems. That's the natural law of karma, right? So it's the same thing with meat, that if I killed the animal and you ate it, you're still experiencing the unwholesome karma because it's affecting the health of your body. But in Thailand, this is one of the big misunderstandings that they have. But this is also why they experience a lot of stomach cancer here in Thailand, because they eat so much meat. But people who understand, they, would be able to understand the teachings. But in general, you'll find that Thai people aren't judgmental towards others. Even if they know the teachings, they're not going to judge people. They're not going to look down on them. If that person would like to sell meat, that's a choice for them to make. And the Thai people aren't going to judge that person for doing that. Mm-hmm. I saw someone else have a question.
Oh, yeah. So I want to talk about real estate. For example, it's considered as a right livelihood, I guess. People would think that the job is to help everyone to find a ideal home or ideal or good investment.
Mm-hmm.
In reality, because I'm in real estate, I'm in real estate business for many years now, and I can still say that I sometimes experience people that I have never seen before. The level of manipulation or the level of so there's a lot of like scheming and cheating. It's just on daily basis, negotiations on daily basis.
Okay.
So it's really hard for some people because they might be able to make a really good financial gain from it.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, I would always doubt if it's a right thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I try to do the right things, but
Mm-hmm.
the people around me are not.
Okay.
It's very hard in that kind of environment. Basically, everybody is kind of like taking your energy away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you get what I mean.
Yeah. So you're confusing these two teachings here. Your question was, is selling real estate the right livelihood, right? So then you were talking about scheming, corruption. These are two separate things. So just selling real estate, there's no harm in that if someone chooses to sell real estate, because you can see it's not selling weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, or poisons. But what people are doing in that livelihood where you're at is they're scheming, right? And now that's producing the unwholesome karma. So it's not the fact that they're selling real estate that is producing the unwholesome karma, it's the scheming. So you could sell real estate and do it in a wholesome and a wise way that doesn't cause harm. But if somebody's choosing to scheme, that's the part. And it doesn't matter whether you're selling real estate or any other thing. If you're scheming, it's going to produce unwholesome results for you. So you can do real estate and do it ethically and responsibly and without causing harm. You need to be able to practice these things here, eliminating scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, and pursuing gain with gain. Whether other people choose to do that or not, that's a choice for them to make. And then you need to make the choice of whether or not you would like to work with those types of people. Because if you're working with people who are doing a lot of this, that means that they're experiencing unwholesome karma because of this. But if you choose to work with them, now you're experiencing the unwholesome karma because of your choice to do business with someone who is scheming. So there's no harm in you selling real estate. You would just like to do it, making sure you're practicing this here, what the Buddha is teaching you, and then work with other people who are also practicing this as well. And that's what's going to produce the wholesome results for you.
Yeah. In reality, it's very difficult to do because I've recently involved in a deal. So once you get involved in a deal, it's very hard to get out. Mm-hmm. You have to, once you start it, you have to finish it. You have to complete it. Mm-hmm. You would be working, for example, if you are the sellers or the buyer's agent, you'll be working with the other agents and you will have a seller and buyer. So you're going to have 4 parties together, mm-hmm. and you can't really control what other people are doing. Mm-hmm. And once you started doing the transaction, you have to complete it all the way. Whole process, during this whole process, everybody's manipulating. Everybody's trying to maximize their benefit.
I understand that's what you're used to, but there's people who don't do that are more caring of the customer in the final result. But the environment that you're in and that you're choosing to be in, that's what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
But you would like to, if you're going to continue to do this work, find an environment where that's not the case. And that's what's going to produce more and more wholesome results for you.
So you have to be very selective in who to work with.
Yeah, you said it's hard. And the only reason why it's hard is because the lack of wisdom that the mind has. The more wisdom that you have of these natural laws, now you can make wise decisions about where to do the work that you're doing. But right now, with the lack of this wisdom, you'll find it very hard. Like you said, there'll be struggles there. But once you understand this wisdom and you practice it, you'll be able to move your life in a direction that's producing more and more wholesome results. But it is challenging when you don't have this wisdom. So bringing this wisdom on board and now practicing it on a day-to-day basis, that's what's actually going to help you.
You should be able to see people.
Yeah,
I should be able to see how people are from inside, from the first initial conversations, right? Not until they started manipulating and I thought that I was wrong about it.
Yeah, what you get good at is you get good at asking questions and observing their answers and interacting with people, not in a judgmental way, but in a way that helps you get insight. So if you're working with a new agent or a new broker, you would like to ask that person a lot of questions, like what would you do in this type of situation if someone did this and someone did this and there's this business transaction going on, how would you handle that? And now when they explain to you how they would handle it, they're giving you insight into their business decisions and how they make decisions. And now you don't judge them or look down on them if they're making what you consider to be unwise decisions. Instead, you just realize, this isn't the kind of person that I'm interested in working with. So I'm going to move on and look for another broker or look for another agent to work with. So you can ask questions and you can observe how they make decisions, both not only through your questions, but when they're actually making decisions. Now you get insight and understanding of how they make decisions, and then you make your decisions accordingly of how you would like to work with this person or not.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, do we have any other questions? Yep, question. Yep. It just takes a second. You just press the button and the lights will come on. Wait.
Sorry. I want to talk about work. When I found a job that I really like, I don't care about money. Like you said, sell mango. But I think at the first or 1 or 2 years, you will feel really happy, and maybe the third years, you will feel like tired or you didn't see any development. You will feel maybe don't like this job. Like you person you said they sell mango. Maybe after 5 years they will think why I sell mango every day is really tired. And maybe it become have a well development. Maybe become a mango company, a big company. Maybe they will think they have something interesting to do about this job. And yeah, I have this question.
I'm not sure that I understand your question. Maybe you can come talk to me after class.
Oh, okay.
And I can help you.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I see a question here on Zoom. It's Raphael. It says, could you please repeat which book and chapter is on Right Livelihood? Oh, so it's volume 1, chapter 5 is where you're going to see the beginning teachings on Right Livelihood. But then if you'd like to see the deeper teachings, the full teachings of the first and second fold of purification, it would be volume 12, chapter 14. That's where you'd like to look. Okay, so I was just sharing with you guys this moral conduct section of the Eightfold Path. This is something that you're going to need to gradually implement. You can't just snap your fingers and instantly practice this perfectly. It's going to take time to gradually build your practice of moral conduct up. But as you do over a consistent long-term period, this is where you're going to see more and more improvement into your day-to-day life. Next week, I'm going to share the mental discipline section, where you wouldn't be able to implement the moral conduct without the mental discipline, because you're going to need to be able to train your mind to be able to then speak in the way that I described, or have certain bodily actions or right livelihood. As long as you have craving, desire, attachment, where the mind's longing, yearning, you'll find it very difficult to speak gentle in all situations. So next week, I'm going to be sharing that on Sunday. And in terms of the rest of today, I'll just give you guys a heads up of the different things we have going on here. Is at 3 to 5 today, I'm going to be starting a retreat here, where all next week we have a retreat going on, and we're going to start it from 3 to 5 today. At 6:30 to 7:30 in the main hall, I'm going to be guiding students in a loving kindness meditation. This is a meditation that helps eliminate your anger, hatred, and ill will, and all the lesser versions like frustration and agitation, annoyance, and even the slightest dislike towards others. So I'm going to be guiding students in that. It syncs up with the night market. And I'm going to open up to questions that you guys might have there. Then at 9 p.m. here in the classroom, I'm going to be teaching this same topic that I just taught for the 9 o'clock session. So these are all options that you guys have available for you. And you can come and learn this entire Eightfold Path if you like on Tuesday morning as part of our retreat. I'm going to be teaching the entire Eightfold Path as part of the retreat, so that way you can learn it inside and out, backwards and forwards, or you can come to the whole retreat if you'd like. The details on this are on our bulletin board. It's also on our website as well. So as you guys see, the world is full of impermanence because we started with a whole lot of people in this room and a lot of them have left. This is all impermanence, right? This is constant change, right? If you had a craving for permanence for everybody to stay here, you'd be frustrated or agitated or annoyed when people got up and left. But if you understand impermanence and you're not craving permanence when people get up and leave like that, you can be completely peaceful and joyful and just understanding that this is impermanence. So I would like to thank you guys for your interest to learn and grow and develop on the path. Thank you for being interested to learn the teachings of the Buddha. As you guys would like to learn more, there's plenty of opportunities for you to do that. Feel free to reach out, and I'm here to help you guys get plugged into the resources that you need. So whatever you choose to do today, have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. We'll see you next time. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap. You're welcome. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.